I'm fascinated to know then, so where did the credibility come from? You said you built some credibility within jiu-jitsu.
Really, it comes from the fact that there's two ways you can do it. You can either demonstrate it. Now, for me, that was always an issue because I never competed. I was never a competitive student. For my teacher, Henzo, he demonstrated competence by winning competitions. So for me, it was always like, I never actually competed. So there was always this credibility question. How do you know he's any good? Never competed. I would spar with people in class every single day. I used to spar 7 days a week, and every class I would spar in the classes. And there's a clear sense where when you spar with someone, you can immediately judge their skill level. Like there's no faking when you're sparring. And you can't just say, oh, I'm good, and then you got to go out there and actually perform. So sparring is the clearest sense or the clearest means by which you can demonstrate skill level. So this was my method. I didn't compete in a competition circuit, but I sparred every day in the gym. And so this was an easy way to demonstrate proficiency.
Great. Yeah. Amazing. And that's kind of like that respect that you get. Interested as well, because you're like, call it your training lineage, or the people that you were exposed to, you've mentioned some already, is incredible. Was that luck? Was that intentional?
That's a great question. On the face of it, I would say that I've been extraordinarily fortunate in the students who have come to me. One thing that's odd about me is that I've never been in a position to recruit students. I've never actually owned my own school. I've always taught out of other people's schools. Most people, they have their own school and they pull people in, and they often form a competition team by recruiting. They say, they meet a guy at a competition, hey, you're talented, come and train at my school. I'll give you free membership or what have you. I just teach whoever's on the mat. So I've never actively recruited. People come to me. George came from Montreal. A lot of my well-known students came from New Jersey and Long Island. Often it'll be word of mouth. They'll just hear, oh, there's a guy teaching there, and they'll come in and do a class and enjoy the class and see that there's something which brings them in. I've never actively sought out students, but I have been incredibly fortunate insofar as I lived in New York City. New York is like a mecca for talented people. It's an easy place to travel to. It has great infrastructure for travel. So people would often come in. The school that I taught out of had an excellent reputation, and I had talented students. As these students gained proficiency, word of mouth got out that, hey, there was this school in New York where the standard is very high and the training is very good. And talent attracts talent, so to speak. And so I never had a problem having talented people in the room. The only question was, of course, who would be the most talented? In a room full of talented people, there's always going to be the cream of the crop. And those would, of course, invariably be the hardest working and the best problem solvers. And over time, I've had many extraordinarily talented students come through the doors.
What were some of the biggest things some of your mentors taught you that you've held on to throughout your career?
I think the people who had the most effect on me would be my philosophy professors.
Wow.
Because they hammered home the idea that the most important thing in a world where all the answers are usually a little unclear and ambiguous and controversial, the most important thing is the questions that you ask. And when it comes time to assess the mental acuity of a jiu-jitsu student, the first thing I do is I assess how good are their questions. If they're asking the right questions, then I see talent. If the questions they ask are unimportant or unclear or poorly structured, then you got a lot of work to do to make them better. Philosophy taught me that answers are important, but for long-term progress, the most important thing are the questions you ask, because that will always determine the kind of research program that you finally generate. And that research program is ultimately what's going to generate answers. So if you start off with the right questions, your task will be a lot, not only much more successful, but in a sense, much deeper. And so I've always been eternally grateful to my study of philosophy. I made many foolish decisions in my life, but the one wise decision I made was to study philosophy. And it's mostly for that reason, that It pushes you to ask the right questions, to divide difficult problems up into areas, to make precise distinctions, and to ask deep and profound questions about whatever you're studying.
Yeah, that's an incredible answer. I'm a deep thinker myself. I ask a lot of questions. I'm a coach that works with people one-to-one, so it's all mostly question-driven.
Interesting.
What are the answers that you're looking for yourself at the moment?
Not really. My primary thing is the growth of my students. So the eternal question I'm always asking is, am I providing a framework where they can maximize learning in the minimum time? So it's always, what is the maximum progress in minimum time? That's the single biggest question that dominates my life.
Interesting. What is the maximum growth in the minimum time? Have you got answers for that?
I have answers that I currently accept, but are always open to revision in the future.
Yeah.
You never want to become too dogmatic. You don't want to say this is the right way to do things. I'd say this is working well, but there's always a question: could you be doing better? And if you ever stop asking that question, that's usually when you fall behind.
What is it that's driven you to want to help other people?
Part of it is practical. I'm a cripple, so early on in my life, I thought to myself, well, it's going to be difficult for me to become the best in a physical domain, but one thing I can do is help other people who aren't cripples to get to their goals. And so part of it was practical. But once I started that path, I became eternally grateful for the decision that I'd made, because it dawned on me that the greatest moments of happiness in my life have almost all come from seeing someone else realize their goals rather than myself realize my goals. And that there's a much deeper sense of happiness and joy associated with a group of people making a goal together than you as an individual making a goal for yourself.
Do you think that's individual, or do you think that's a general rule that we can all live by?
I think it's pretty general. I think most people are, obviously there's some self-interested people out there, but I think that in general, people have a need for association with others, and you can't live your life alone. You'll just be miserable. And there's a real joy, I think, in the overwhelming majority of people in being part of a shared project where you feel like you're striving towards something bigger than just yourself, and that there's a certain emptiness and loneliness and shallowness in a life lived only for your own self-interest. And humans, the majority of humans, I believe, will ultimately reject that in favor of a communal project where people work together and go through shared suffering, shared grief, shared sorrow, and shared triumph towards a common goal.
I recently heard someone say that the human experience isn't about the bricks, which is representative of the individual. It's about the glue or the cement that sticks it together. That
Interesting.
I saw something you shared the other day, which really spoke to me, actually. You spoke about it, of course, from the perspective of jiu-jitsu. You talked about the ability to defend yourself against an opponent is directly related to your ability to connect with them. What did you mean by that?
It's a straightforward physical thing. In jiu-jitsu, the quality of your technique, at least in terms of offense, is almost always directly proportional to your ability to form a solid connection to your opponent's body. Lack of connection. Yeah, physical connection. Lack of connection almost always means inferior technique. There has to be a certain tightness in your technique in order for it to be effective. And lacking that, you'll always have weak and ineffective technique.
What do you think about the same rule applying to some sort of don't know, you want to call it a spiritual connection or an energetic connection?
No. I'm very much a physicalist when it comes to combat technique. It's just mechanics.
Okay. So it wouldn't be some sort of, I'll call it like an understanding of them as a person. Yeah.
Now you're getting into like tactics and strategy. There it can have some relevance. But when I talked about that example, I was taking purely in terms of mechanics.
Okay.
For me, the interesting question, the most interesting questions are how are you going to mechanically defeat an opponent?
What's important about control, obviously from a fighting aspect, but translating that to life as well?
Yeah, it gives you a tremendous number of options. In the case of combat, when you control someone, you can vary the degree of intensity of your response to them. One of the beauties of jiu-jitsu that we pointed out earlier was the idea that it gives you a huge range in terms of how violent your response to their attack is. It can be anything from very, very mild, from simple controls and pins and just restraints, all the way through to a stranglehold taken to its conclusion, which is death. Mm-hmm. So it gives you the full spectrum of response. And that gives you a tremendous sense of, there's the physical control, and there's also the almost like moral control of the situation, where you can go all the way from a rather restrained and passive path to victory to an incredibly violent one. And so there's this sort of, there's a sense in which you control not only the outcome of the fight, but also the degree of severity of response. So almost every aspect of the fight gets controlled.
It's really interesting because so much of that does translate to life and what we can and can't control. And I suppose for myself, am I a white belt if I've done 2 sessions? Nearly? No.
You're a no belt.
I'm a no belt. Okay.
You have to join up a school, and,
okay.
And then you would get your white belt. Yeah.
Okay. Even better example then. So I'm a no belt. And when I'm practicing in these 2 sessions that I've been in, I don't feel in any control.
Yeah.
Really.
I had the same feeling in my first class.
Yeah. How do we manage that?
You feel the opposite. You feel that you're on the wrong end of the stick of control, like you are being controlled.
Yes, exactly.
And this is not a good feeling.
Yeah.
You know, it's an odd thing that a white belt has no sense of how to control another human being, but they all have an innate sense of when they are being controlled. You don't have to have any martial arts knowledge whatsoever to know this is not good. I am being controlled, and I am no longer in control of my own movement. This guy is. This is a scary feeling.
What's strange is I don't know anything that I'm doing, but I can, like you're saying, I can sense when I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And that, I quite liked that.
Yeah.
Instinctively, I was moving my leg in not necessarily the right place, but a place that was at least trying to help me to get, like, pick up on something and get out of the way.
It's an odd thing that instincts can often get you in trouble in jiu-jitsu when you first begin, because many of our instincts are designed to create flight, and you often expose your back and make a bad situation considerably worse through instinct. And a big part of coaching a beginner is to corral certain instincts and make use of those, but expunge other instincts, which end up getting you in hot water. Yeah. So instinctive responses can be a blessing and a curse when you first start off.
Okay. So how do we manage or cope with that feeling of being completely out of control?
Training.
Okay.
Exposure.
Yeah. Repetition.
Yeah.
Interesting. Something Tim Kennedy said to me, which was fascinating. We rolled for 5-6 minutes tops, and he was able to say a lot about me. We didn't speak a load, but we rolled for 5-6 minutes, and he was able, he reeled off a load of things. Some of them nice, some of them not so nice, but, was able to say how I dealt under pressure, my stress response. He knew I didn't smoke, didn't drink. Like, he knew I was fit cardiovascularly and all these things. I thought that's fascinating.
You get a tremendous ability to read someone when you put them under pressure. Like, again, it goes back to this idea of connection. When you connect to a human being and you're grappling, you get to read every aspect of their body. You can feel their heart rate, their breathing. You can even see the dilation of their eyes and how much panic response there is in their eyes, their facial tension, things like this. So you get a degree of assessment of a human being, which is quite interesting and unique. Moreover, many of the responses when you're grappling cannot be faked. Like, if you and I engage in a conversation and we don't know who each other are, we've never met each other, both of us will put on a lot of fake ears. As human beings, we want to impress each other, so we say certain things, we act in certain ways, we put on a certain body language. And many of these will be designed to create an impression which may not be particularly accurate. We're trying to put forward an image, and the image may not accurately reflect the reality of who we are. But in grappling, you can't do that. You're under stress and you're fighting for survival. And so you can't fake your heart rate. You can't fake your breathing. You can't fake stress levels. And an experienced grappler can feel all of those immediately. In this sense, you get a very honest appraisal when you grapple. There's no faking it.
Sumi Gaeshi is among the most important positional moves in the sport of jiu-jitsu. It is a sweeping and throwing method that uses your legs to lift and turn an opponent onto his back so that you can get up on top of him. It works at all levels of the sport and in all weight categories. It is equally effective in both gi and no-gi jiu-jitsu. It has been used as the centerpiece of bottom guard attacks by many great athletes for generations. I believe that investing serious time in the study and practice of Sumi Gaeshi is one of the best things that you can do to improve your overall jiu-jitsu game. Sumi Gaeshi is typically employed from seated guard, usually when an opponent is on one or two knees. But, as we shall see in this video, it is also very effective even against standing opponents as well.